The Caribbean Policy Development Center, in collaboration with the Institute for Gender and Development Studies Nita Barrow Unit and UETV, have partnered on a project titled Voices of Women, which seeks to highlight women from Barbados and the wider Caribbean, reflecting on their work in the areas of education, community development, development work, healthcare, and politics. It is comprised of a series of interviews recorded by UETV featuring women with rich and diverse backgrounds. Today on Voices of Women, we highlight Nalita Gadajhar.
Welcome to UETV. My name is Karen Phillip from Caribbean Policy Development Center, and today I'm going to be interviewing Nalita Gadajhar about her work in the feminist movement in Barbados and how she sees herself in the battle. Thank you for being here today.
Thank you. I feel honestly honored. Thanks.
Yes. So your work with activism started from a child. You've mentioned before that your mother was heavily involved. So you want to tell us a bit about that?
Well, I don't think she would have called it feminism or activism. I think it was just her personality and the part she played in the community. And so when people, in those days, because I can age myself, in those days it was fun to have women being beaten on the weekend. And my mom would open the door. You know, a lot of people would run, Holly, 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 open the door, and my mom would open the door. And let them in, you know, and what talked about her, like the Bacchanal woman, although I don't think that the Bacchanal woman is truly explained, but she would stand at the door if the guy was running into the house, you know, to say, well, no, you can't come in. You can't come past, you know, get up past me. And that was basically how I got involved. I was unfortunate because I still remember it like yesterday. A woman was cut up, slashed up in the neighborhood. And my mom took it on herself to take me with her to clean the house.
Oh, okay.
And I can still remember the smell of blood.
Yeah.
And it was really a horrible task, but she survived. But they didn't want her to come back into the house. And then there were times when you didn't know who you were sleeping with. Yeah. You know, because somebody's running in and it's late in the night, so they're not going back out.
Yeah.
And so your bed now expands to include people in the neighborhood. You know, so that was what she did.
Okay.
And but I don't think she would have labeled it as such. It was just the role that she played and how she felt that women should be treated.
And you took up her mantle.
To a large extent, yes. Of course, it became more formal, you know, getting involved with women's groups and national politics and that type of thing that made it more formal, that gave it a name and gave yourself a name. So I like to call myself a feminist activist.
So tell us about that transition, because you didn't actually, your academic training isn't in that. You were a network system administrator. Yeah. So for you were doing this on the side more or less?
Yeah, well, so, I had to earn a living.
Yes.
And I was doing accounts and so on, so I got into accounts. I got into the computers. I was telling a guy the other day, when y'all do history on television on computer technology, that I would have experienced the 299 card.
Okay.
Where it was just slipping down and that type of thing. He was like, that's not true, you can't be that old, but I am that old. And but that's how I earned my living. But I got involved with clubs.
Which clubs?
Especially a Business and Professional Women's Club. I was invited to be a young BPW, and they had a competition for the young career woman, they called it, and my company sponsored me, and I got involved with that group. Okay. And I think that's where I really made an input, because BPW allowed me to focus on issues related to women's empowerment. And through that, then I got involved with the National Organization of Women.
Okay.
And because I would have been a delegate from BPW to NEL. Okay. And that led then to me being elected as president of NEL, and just gave me more voice in terms of talking about women's issues. And it was a beautiful experience because I had the opportunity to work on women's issues throughout, not only in Barbados, but throughout the region.
Okay.
Because it was a time when people were now getting involved more and more with the international movement, more involved with the new conventions that were being developed for women, and work for women. And so I was able to participate with UN, UN Women. And it was
Unifem.
It was Unifem then, Unifem. And so you got involved with helping to change and develop policy, or a focus group that was looking at how we can do this thing or do the other thing. So that was the opening, and it was a beautiful experience. And I think it has brought me here, where I am today, where I feel as if as I said, I feel honored, but I also feel as I have made that contribution to women's development and to Barbados as well, and the region. Yeah.
And for those who don't know, when she says where she is now, she's at the Bureau of Gender Affairs, implementing programs for the government under that position.
I was a late achiever. I went to school at Queen's College, but let me just tell you where I came informed throughout my school life at QC. There would have been 28 children in the school, and I put in the class, in my form, and I would have come 27th.
Okay.
But that 27th would have been with like 70-something%. That's where the level was.
Yeah.
And I never really had that level. I really wasn't engaged or totally interested.
Yeah.
You know, Elsie Payne said to me once, Nalita, if you paid as much attention to your work as you did to your extracurricular activities, you'd be a genius, because I just did all the things that I could do at school. And it was that movement then. I started very late. I think it was a challenge to get into UE. I didn't do maths.
Okay.
And you had to have maths. But then they had a program that said if you went to BIMAP and you did the diploma in BIMAP, that would have been used as matriculation to get into UE. So I did that.
Okay.
And but then I spent a lot of time trying to get into politics and and law. And I was told only the really bright and young people got into that one. And eventually I dropped the law and just did the politics, and I did what is for me is an equivalent in gender, which is now being tested.
So back to your activism week, I was told in the early days you fought a lot about the stigmatisms against HIV and AIDS. Could you tell me a bit about those activist movements?
Well, HIV was relatively new to Barbados, and the work that you were doing, once you were identified with the work, it was you know, you got the stigma came to you as well. But what I wanted to do, and what the Bureau allowed me to do, was to focus on how vulnerable women were to HIV, because what was happening with the promotion and the public information, the woman was seen as the target who was giving the man the HIV. You know, so stay away. That they had one that had it was my cousin actually. He was the guy, and he was sitting at the bar, and this woman was coming in and coming on to him, and then it was like, stop. Stop. So that was not right. Yeah. And then the science told you that women were more vulnerable. So I spent a lot of time dealing with and helping to develop programs that dealt with women and HIV. Okay. So, and gender in HIV. So you started to look at the biological impact, the biological vulnerability, the social vulnerability, and that type of thing. I was fortunate I worked with at UE, at the time I might have been a student here, or maybe I might not. And UE Heart was being developed, and I worked with UE Heart and had programs with the young students and so on. And that was good. And they also had community committees where they would go into the community and talk about HIV. So you were going into rum shops and talking to people, and sometimes going in a rum shop and talking to people about HIV was hard. And it was so ridiculous, because a man would look at you and tell you in all seriousness, I could drink a rum, I can drink this rum, and this rum gonna cure me of everything. And you want to know, how do you stop this person from being so stupid? And you realize, but you really can't. You gotta leave him and hope he doesn't do too much damage to other people, but you try to have other people to avoid that person. So that was an exciting period. I still regret that I don't do it anymore. I don't do it for the Bureau anymore.
Okay.
Because I stepped aside because I became ill, and I felt that I was taking on too much. And so in my 40s, I had this huge heart attack where they thought I was going to die. So I kind of cut back on some of the things that I was doing. But it is a fascinating area to work with, to work on, and to see the changes, especially with young people. How young people have changed their behavior, how young men have changed their behavior. Because to talk to a young man about a condom was like talking to I don't know who, you know, because it was the touch that mattered. It had to be the real touch, and or it was too. The condom would have been too small. Oh. So then you would have, I remember once doing a workshop and I put the condom on my hand. I said, I dare you to tell me it's too small, you know? But those kind of things you did to get attention and to get people to realize, look, you know, don't fool yourself. You need to protect yourself. And you can find a condom of flavor and texture and size that you can work with. Yeah.
Okay. You sound very passionate about all the projects you've worked on, but I'm still going to ask, is there a particular project that you really enjoyed or you saw the fruits of and you were grateful that you put your all into this?
Well, I think a lot of it had to do with policy. That it might not have had the same level of passion because you're not out there doing, but you're thinking. Okay. And then when you see it being utilized,
yes,
then you realize, hey, you know, I didn't just touch 25 people in a workshop.
Yeah.
That this is something that had its impact on thousands of people.
I understand.
And so that gave me the greatest amount of pleasure. Most recently, but worked with a number of people to amend the Domestic Violence Protection Order Act. And that was a whole process that started from doing, because we had never had a prevalent study. So working with cadres and getting cadres to look at women, look at the level of violence in the country, and then having a consultation to test to see if his methods were really good.
Yeah.
So you brought in academia and all of these people to come in and really test it in a national consultation, and then the recommendations, and then from there went to the development of the actual the policy for the amendments, and just to see that whole process work, because people think you just think of something and it happens. It does not. You know, and if you really want people to buy into it, you want to be able to show what it is that you're responding to, and how, if you really are strategic, how you can make those changes. So we had the changes that we really wanted in the legislation, and we had the police on board.
Okay.
The police were really, because one of the things we wanted in the legislation was to give police the power to do an emergency protection order, because sometimes you can get it, even although it was fast. In terms of access, sometimes you might get it. It'll be Fridays and Saturdays are the times you get into a fight. So you want to be able to get that emergency protection order, and the police were so enthusiastic about it, and we got it in. You know, so moving guns from if somebody is involved in a violent act at home, to take the gun away, those kind of things that were not there before. And I think that when we're able to properly promote it, to educate the public about it, that it will give more women more opportunities for better lives, and more men more opportunities for better lives, because I don't think that people really want to be killing each other and that type of thing.
Okay. So my question is, have you had the pushback? Because you sound like if you've been in the public for most of your adult life, you've been there lobbying. You know, a lot of people think that feminism is the dirty F word, and they want nothing to do with these women who are trying to upset the way society is supposed to be. So how do you deal with those challenges? And
I cry very easily.
Really?
I do. I cry very, very easily. But the thing is to have the kind of support that helps, and then a resilience that says to hell with you. Because after I cry, I can curse. Yeah, not that I'm going to curse people, but I might curse. And so I've had to deal with especially the men's group, Misa. I got into so much trouble with them. And what really hurt me was that when Misa wanted to start their organization, I thought it was such a good idea. And I went out and I lobbied to try to get funds for a building to house Misa now. And they had a program going for young children as well. And, you know, and every time that I got invited to a conference, I would say, but there is a men's group. We want to invite them. And so get that invitation to to Misa. But then rather than work with us, they saw themselves as being combative. And it just didn't make any sense because they're really trying to make a better world. And so I sometimes was rude. I think one or two times I've made Misa walk out of the room from something that I have said, and then got into trouble with my PS because I should not have said that. I think one of the most hurtful periods is when a women's church leader, where she got more than about 60 or so of her women to write a letter to my PS asking for my dismissal from the Bureau of Gender Affairs because I was anti-Christ, I was the anti-God. And that came because I was doing work with the television program. I was running a co-host on a television program called Head On, where my guest, the co-host, was a preacher. And he was very, 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 very literal. And I would be there trying to, and on with the instructions from the director, opposing. And so people saw me as the person who didn't know God and who hated God and all of that. And if she had objected to me because of something that I had said about Christ, about religion, about the church, and I said a lot of those things, I would not have been so angry. But she sent this letter because we had an exhibition of women, and her picture was not included. And so I must have been anti-Christ not to have a picture of this woman who is so godly among these women who have made this contribution to women. And so that upset me really, really, really much. So that I started, I'm not rude, I'm never rude, I'm just rebellious. And so I would not listen to her, you know. Sometimes they would invite her to speak. I would walk out the room, that type of thing, because I thought it just did not make any sense. She'd never gotten those 60 women to sign a placard to support anything that we were doing to make lives better for women. And that was one of the things. And then the other thing that comes to mind is when I came home one evening from doing the program, and I found my son crying. And why was he crying? Because someone had taken the telephone after the show to call home. And the person was cursing him. And when he came in, all he could say, but Mommy, why people hate you so much? And he was in tears. And that really, really had me going that somebody could go out of their way to be so evil. You know, because he didn't know who he was talking to, and he must have recognized that it's a child's voice, you know? So I think those are the three things that kind of come to mind, but to be quite honest, I blow them off. And because if you don't blow them off, you'll stop what you're doing because they're so hard, you know. And it's not just, like I said, well, I gave the example of the woman and the man. Don't think it just comes from men. It comes from women too, who believe that you are making their lives uncomfortable by being this feminist activist. Everything is going fine. We're good here.
Yeah, right.
Why do you want to do that now?
It's not bothering me.
No.
They need to make better choices.
Yes, because if they do, they wouldn't get into the problems that they do. You know, but then, it's until then they get a letter of dismissal and then they call you and say, oh, you know, Nalita, you know, you know what, these people, what you're saying about men and life and that type of thing, because then they would speak to you at the individual level, and then they want you to come out and bat for them and so on. So, yeah.
So how have you prepared, or how are you working on ensuring that a next generation of feminist activists are coming up?
I talk about people like you, and I'm not saying that because you're there. At one time, and I think I told Dr. Crawford, who is head of the Center for Gender Development Studies, this just recently, at one time I felt that any issue relating to women, I had to call. We call in programs. I had to write an article. I had to say something. I don't know. You know, they're doing it in different ways. They're using the technology. They are fighting their battles with specific groups, you know, and they're more targeted, you know, but they're responding. And it's not just women, it's just men as well.
Because we need both. And I think there's a misconception that feminism is only about women.
No,
but it's about the entire society and making the entire society have equity, gender equity and equality.
So you get men that staying and standing, and you know, they're standing with you and say, well, you can't say that, that's not acceptable. You know, before 20, 25 years ago, 30 years ago, a man would think that, you know, they would say like, oh, my Miss Gajadhar, man, she hate men. You know, but you don't get that. Now, I mean, you still get some of it, you know, and I've learned to live with it. But what makes me pleased about the future is the fact that so many more women are getting involved. When I did gender here, they probably had about 13, maybe 15 people in a class. You know, CGAD is going on right now. And I was surprised
they have 27.
I was surprised to see how many are in the group. You know, because people want to understand. And then the international agencies, all the advocacy that you did at the international level as well, that said the same way you're going to have an environmental assessment, each project should have a gender assessment. And you know what's happening? It's happening now.
It is.
So that the funding agencies are saying you're not getting a cent if it does not include a gender assessment. And people are taking gender seriously. You know? So those are the things that make me feel, well, life wasn't so bad. I'm not having made $1 million, you know, not even 1,000, but life's not so bad.
No, you're definitely, your legacy is definitely rich. And you have definitely paved the road for many of us. I mean, I am walking in your footsteps as somebody who came from another country, but I know that I have to pay my dues for somebody in Barbados who has done this week. So we just want to close. I'm going to ask you, what would be your one message to young Caribbean women at this time?
I would like to suggest that young Caribbean women find an economic cause on which to mount their advocacy. We've been talking about poverty in a specific way. We've been talking about violence. We've been talking about a lot of things, but we've not necessarily put it in an economic, in the economic language. And let's face it, the people who are in positions of power, they understand economics, they understand finance. I was making the point that care work, there's significant value in care work, and women are so engaged in care work. Find ways, work with the economists in various sectors, you know, to see how you can find a way to include the economic cost of care work at a national and at a regional level, so that has some kind of difference in terms of how your GDP is measured. And you know that you don't just say, because women say who are looking after children in the house or looking after the elderly, say, I don't work.
And even though they have a garden outside.
You know, I don't work. But if you were to look at their day, the day is so full. You know, because we just kind of discount that kind of work. And I think that, for me, that would be the cause. But you find your own cause. but it has to be something that's strong enough to pull people from all sectors so that they want to get involved in it and they realize that they're making a real impact on a lot of people's lives. Not on everybody's lives, because you're not going to get it done, but on a lot of people's lives. And I think that we're on the road. I see a lot of people, you know, that's wrong. I see caring women that's wrong. I don't want to call names because I'm going to forget somebody's name, but you know who they are because you work with them as well and you talk with them as well. And I think that that's what we need to get that cause.
But I have one more.
Okay.
Beside your mother, who else would you say are influential woman in your life? Who helped shape you in your journey to becoming a feminist activist?
Oh, I can call names here. I can call Vivian Seeley. She's now passed. Vivian was a member of BPW and she adopted me. She had no children. She adopted me. She scolded me. She quarreled with me, whatever. But she wanted me to do well and she did, you know. There was Jackie Banfield as well. Jackie Banfield, you would have probably know her name from being involved with early childhood education. And again, Jackie Banfield was one of those women that helped to shape me. And then the one that I have tremendous respect, not that I don't have tremendous respect for the others, but one, and her name just came, so I should not have interrupted my thoughts. But she was head of UN Women, UNIFEM at the time. Oh dear, I should not have done that.
Was Rosita?
No, before Roberta Clark, there was, she had retired. Oh dear. You fill it in when you do the editing. Or somebody will call you when this is broadcast and they'll say this is who it is. But she worked at UN Women, at UNIFEM. And she was so interested in helping to shape young people that came in. And she wanted them to understand that it was bigger than just Barbados. It was big. It was the world.
Okay.
You know, it was. She taught us how to participate at international conference and which conference was important to go to. So you didn't just go running around to conference here and conference there, but you went to specific conferences and you know when to speak, when not to speak. And her training was fantastic, and I think it has helped me a lot in terms of understanding myself and my place and where I can participate, you know.
Well, I want to thank you so much for spending this time. I've learned even more, and I'm very grateful, and I'm grateful for your legacy in Barbados and the wider Caribbean. So thank you, Nalita.
You're most welcome, and thank you for what you're doing for this legacy of Caribbean women. It's really great.
Thank you for watching Voices of Women. My name is Karen Phillip, and I've been talking with Nalita Gadajhar today. Thank you for watching UETV.
Thank you for watching. We hope you enjoyed this program. Remember, you can watch this and all our programs on our website, www.uitv.org, available anytime, anywhere, and on any device. Also, join the conversation on social media by visiting our Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram pages.